Hello, hello, and welcome back to our Finding Better podcast. My name is John Suzuki, and I am your host. And this is the month of June, and this is the June John Talk. And this is where I just talk about stuff I want to share with you, based on experiences that I've had. And and I'll tell you something. Well, first of all, if I sound a little bit sick or I look a little bit sick, I have to apologize to you because I am a little bit sick. But something happened to me yesterday that blew my mind. And I've been around for 62 years, and this is something that I didn't want to wait to share with you. And I call it the greatest gift of all, the greatest gift of all. And let me tell you a story about myself. I've given a lot of gifts in my life. I've given big gifts, small gifts, travel gifts, I've experiential gifts, material gifts. All my life, I've given gifts of everything I could possibly think of that might be appreciated. And you know, what I'm talking about now is none of that stuff. And I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you what happened to me last night. Last night I was with my family and I was with my grandkids, my 4 and 6 year old grandkids. And a couple of weeks ago, I was having a conversation with Kim Sorrell. Kim Sorrell wrote the book called Love Is, and it's one of my favorite books in the entire world. And we were having a conversation, and during the conversation, she talked about being present and how it's important to be present. And she just mentioned it in a sentence, but it stuck with me. It stuck with me, and I thought to myself, being present. And so last night, I decided that I was going to be present. I was going to be present for my grandkids. Now, what does that mean? And how is that different from all the other times I've been with my grandkids? I left my cell phone in the car, and I decided that every moment that I spent with them, they were going to be the most important thing in my life. Those moments that I was spending with my grandkids were going to be the most important and most highly prioritized moments in my life. And so my 4 year old grandson, he wanted to tell me a story. And so normally I'd be like, yeah, 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 Sean, yeah, okay, okay. So what's going on? What's going on, buddy? And I'm thinking about everything else that's going on in my life. Last night, he wanted to tell me a story. And we got the family together, his parents and my wife. And we sat there in rapt attention. Nothing else mattered. There wasn't anything in the world that mattered more than him. And he went on he's 4 years old. And his whole story, every other word was the word poo-poo. And he talked about poo-poo. And he talked about how a little boy climbed a tree and the tree was full of poo-poo. And then he walked over to his friend's house that was made out of poo-poo. And then he jumped in a pool that was full of poo-poo and the poo-poo ate him. I mean, it just made absolutely no sense. But we were there in rapt attention. And there were a couple of times when I said, "The end?" And he kept going. And we just sat there listening and really listening, not thinking about anything else going on, but everything was on him. And, he finally got to the end. And we clapped and we cheered, and he just beamed. Oh my gosh, I've never seen him smile so much. He was so happy. And then the 6 year old came in and he says, "I want to tell a story too." And so he went on to tell a story where, you know, every 10th word was poo poo. And, but none of it made sense. And so, but we sat there listening to him and we were trying to figure out what he was talking about, but he was just rambling. But he had all of our attention. We were all present. We were not looking at our cell phones. We weren't even eating. And there were 4 times when I said, "The end," and he kept going. "The end," and he kept going. And finally, he said, "The end." And we clapped and we cheered. And it was just amazing how his joy of our listening to him and paying attention to him came right back at us. And it was one of the most wonderful moments we've ever had together. And then, whenever they called, whenever they said, "Hey, Papa, come here," nothing else mattered. Nothing else mattered. And it was, okay, what's going on? What's going on? And it was just amazing. It was wonderful. And building their confidence. I mean, you could just see it in them, how they wanted to go on, and they just felt so proud. And I realized that I hardly ever do that. I hardly ever do that. And I certainly don't do that on purpose. And, we live in a world where there's so much going on. And, I hear all the time people say, yeah, I'm really good at multitasking. Well, that may be the case, but just know that if you're multitasking, you're not being present. And, social media has been a really wonderful thing. But when it comes to being present with people, it has been a terrible thing, right? Because social media has been designed to be addictive. It is. And you carry this thing around with you all the time, like I do. I'm maybe having a conversation, my phone vibrates, I'm picking up my phone. Stop, right? When you're talking to somebody, especially your kids, but when you're talking to anybody and someone else tries to get your attention, or when your phone buzzes or something else happens, don't do it. Just give that person your 100% attention. And it's amazing what can happen. I did it last night with my wife. Before she would say something and I'd be watching TV. Yeah, honey, what's going on? She said something. I turned off the TV. I put down my phone and I said, yeah, what's up? And it's just amazing. It's just amazing. And we just had a great conversation. Like that isn't normal because that's not what we do, right? And so you think about the past, you think about the future. You have all these things going on right now. When you're talking to somebody, just try it. Just try it. Block all that stuff out. You can get to it later, right? But for that moment, the most important person in your world is the person you're talking to. Nothing else matters. And so whether it be kids or your friends or your family or your bosses or subordinates or whoever, your customers, every relationship you have. And some people say, I don't have time to be present. Okay, so I'm going to call bullshit on you because that's me too. But the fact of the matter is that if you're talking to somebody, you're spending time right there. The only question is the quality of that time that you're spending. And my suggestion, my ask of an experience to give yourself is to take that time and just block everything else out. You're spending that time anyway. Okay? You're spending that time anyway. And when you think about it, when was the last time you gave your kids or someone you care about 10 minutes or even 5 minutes of your undivided, absolute attention? When's the last time, right? When you turned your phone off, you turned your computer off, you turned your TVs off, you turned your games off, you turned your podcasts off. Well, I mean, you just put them aside and you said, yeah, what's going on? When's the last time, right? If you're like me, it's been a long time. And, one of my greatest regrets now that I realize this is that I'm just realizing this and I'm 62 years old and my kids are all grown up. And I don't have many regrets in my life. And even this one isn't a regret. But I wish I knew this when my kids were growing up. Um, it would have made me a better dad. And one of the things that I am always impressed with are people who remember the names of everybody, right? My karate sensei is an eighth degree black belt, and we just celebrated 50 years of our dojo's anniversary. And there have been thousands and thousands of people who have come through our dojo. And this man, who we call Sensei, I call him the real Mr. Miyagi, remembers the names of everybody. I have been with him where someone who hasn't, who was part of his school 45 years ago came walking up to him and saying, "Hey, Sensei, how are you? Do you remember me?" And he goes, "Hey, Tommy, how's it going?" "Whoa, you grew up 45 years." He remembers the names of their uncles and aunties and parents. And I asked him one day, I said, "Sensei, how do you remember people's names so much?" And he says, "John, it's easy. You just have to like people." And so, I said, "Okay, I'll like people." And so I'm going off in my world liking. I still can't remember people's names. And I'm one of those people who forgets the names of someone I just met while I'm talking to them, right? And it wasn't until last night that I realized what Sensei was saying. Be present with them. And when you're present with them, you'll remember them. And so I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it. And I may not be very good at it, but I'm going to try. And I'm going to start by trying to remember a person's name at the end of our conversation, right? Because it is just so, so meaningful. And I have lived my professional life of 40 years in sales with one saying in my mind, and that is they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's how I've lived my life with my customers. But you know what? That applies to everybody. So if you want great family relationships, customer relationships, kid relationships, right? Spousal relationships, work relationships, any kind of relationship, try this. The gift of the gift of presence is the greatest gift and the greatest blessing you can give to your children, to your loved ones, and your people. And, you know, try it. Try it. You might like it. And you might find that you not only make one person's life better, but you make two people's lives better, including your own. And that's the amazing thing about this, is because this gift of presence is a gift to yourself too. So, I hope you'll at least consider this because last night blew my mind. And and I really hope it helps. Okay. Thanks for listening. I love you. God bless you. And see you next time. Bye.